Hey friends, welcome to my channel. In this video, you will get an idea about the external as well as the internal features of the spinal cord. So let's get started with our topic. So basically, as everybody knows, that spinal cord, it is a long and cylindrical in shape, which is the lower portion of the central nervous system, and it covers the upper two-third portion of the vertebral canal. So let me write all of these small points which will help you to understand the topic in later stages. So the first thing is, it is a long as well as the cylindrical in shape. The spinal cord, it is long as well as cylindrical in shape. It covers the upper two-third of the vertebral column. Upper two-third portion of the vertebral column. And in the spinal cord, there are total 5 segments. First is the cervical region, second is thoracic region, third is lumbar region, fourth is sacral region, and the last one, that is coccygeal region. So as you can see in this diagram, the uppermost area, that is the cervical region. So uppermost area, that is cervical region. Below that lies the thoracic region. Below the thoracic region, there is lumbar region. Lumbar region. Below the lumbar region lies the sacral region. And at last, that is coccygeal region. So these are the 5 regions, or I can say the segments of the spinal cord. So basically, the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and the coccygeal region. And the number of spinal segment in each of these segments, those are, in the cervical region, there are total 8 spinal segment. In the thoracic region, there are total 12. For the lumbar region, total 5. In the sacral region, again the 5 segments, and the 1 coccygeal region. So the total number of the spinal segment, as you can see, that is 8 plus 12 plus 5 plus 5 plus 1. So that is total 31 spinal segments. Total 31 pair of spinal segments are there. So now comes the external features of the spinal cord. So in some of the external features, as the 2 of them that we have seen, that is, it is long and cylindrical. But the beginning of this spinal cord, which is at the level of foramen magnum. So let me write it over here. Beginning is at the level of foramen magnum, and it ends at the first lumbar vertebra, that is first lumbar vertebra, that is L1, or I can say the more specific, that is lower border of the first lumbar vertebra. In children, this is changed, that is, in children, spinal cord terminates at the level of third lumbar vertebra, that is L3. So in this diagram, the first lumbar vertebra, so here lies the lumbar region, and that is the first lumbar spine, that is here the lower border of this lumbar region, that is the termination of the spinal cord. Next feature that is very important, that there are total 2 enlargements in the spinal cord. First is the cervical enlargement, and the second is lumbar enlargement. So cervical enlargement and the lumbar enlargement, it has a particular significance, that it gives rise to the nerves which are supplying the upper limb from the cervical enlargement, and the nerves which are supplying the lower limb, that is from the lumbar enlargement. Next thing, and the very important thing, is that length of the spinal cord. In the length of the spinal cord, there is 45 centimeter in an adult male and 42 centimeter in an adult female. So these are the basic points that you need to remember whenever you are studying the spinal cord, and these are the segments. Now comes the another important concept, that is, after applying this knowledge, it is very much clear that spinal cord is much shorter than the total height of vertebral canal, or I can say the vertebral spine. Spinal cord is shorter, which means that the spinal segments, they do not lie opposite to their corresponding vertebra. So let me write this sentence over here, that the segments, the spinal segments, they do not lie opposite to their corresponding vertebra. So as the spinal cord is short, there is alteration of the spinal segments. So those alteration we need to understand that when you are talking about the cervical spine, that is C1 to C7, total number of spinal segments which are present, that is 8 segments, C1 to C8. The reason behind the 8th segment is that the first spinal nerve which comes out between the foramen magnum and the first cervical spine, so which comes to the total 8 segments of the cervical region. Then comes the thoracic region. Thoracic region is somewhat, it is divided. So in the thoracic region, if I write, so from the first thoracic region, first thoracic vertebra to the 6th thoracic vertebra, total number of spinal segments which are present, that is T1 to T8, 8 spinal segments which are present. For the T7 to T9, rest all, that is from the T9 to T12, they are between the 7th and the 9th thoracic vertebra. Do remember this thing, these are the vertebral levels and these are the spinal segments. And for the T10 and T11, okay, so for the T10 and T11, all the lumbar segments, that is L1 to L5, they are situated between the 10th and the 11th thoracic vertebra. And for the T12 and the L1, all the sacral segment, that is S1 to S5, as well as the coccygeal region, that is one coccygeal spinal segment which lies between the 12th and the first lumbar vertebrae. So now after applying this knowledge, you can call it as the spinal segments are very much altered, so they do not lie opposite to their corresponding vertebra, and this thing is known as an vertebrosegmental dissimilarity. Let me write it over here, that this is known as an vertebrosegmental dissimilarity. So this is the vertebrosegmental dissimilarity, and I think many of you have heard the terminology, that is the horse tail appearance, that is conus medullaris. So, or the coda equina. The coda equina, so the means equina means a horse. Then how do you come to know that the horse tail appearance is same? Because of this vertebrosegmental dissimilarity. So let me explain you by applying this table. So for example, if you take the 10th thoracic vertebra, that is, let me highlight it, that is 10th thoracic vertebra, and the spinal segment which lie, that is first lumbar vertebra. So here are the 10, 12, 11 and the 10th. This is the T10, and the T10, which is, so here the lumbar area is there, but this L1 will come out from here. This becomes the spinal nerve. So spinal segment which lies actually superior to the spinal nerve. Let me highlight it, that this is the spinal segment, this is spinal segment, and this is the spinal nerve. So I think the three terminologies that we need to remember whenever we are studying the vertebrosegmental dissimilarity, that the first is you focus on the vertebra, the number and the region of the vertebra. Here I have taken the 10th thoracic vertebra. At the level of 10th thoracic vertebra lies the first lumbar spinal segment, but the spinal nerve, or I can say the spinal nerve root, which comes inferior to that, which means it will come out between the L1 and the L2 vertebral level. So this appearance, so this vertical distance, it is formed at each and every level. So if you consider for the right side and for the left side, similarly for the 12th thoracic vertebra, the sacral segments and the coccygeal segments. So all of these appearance and the spinal nerve root, that will make an appearance of a horse tail, which is termed as an chorda equina. Chorda equina. So this is the chorda equina, and we can prove it by using the concept of vertebrosegmental dissimilarity. So vertebrosegmental dissimilarity, I hope it is clear to you right now. But the lowermost portion of the spinal cord, which is termed as an conus medullaris, that is conus medullaris, and a thread-like structure which extends inferior to the conus medullaris. So this structure is termed as an filum terminale. So this was all about the spinal anatomy as well as the segment of vertebrosegmental dissimilarity concept. Now, if we take the cross section of the spinal cord, then how does it look? So let us focus on that. So if we take the cross section of the spinal cord, so we come to know the coverings of the spinal cord as well as the internal structures of the spinal cord. So there are total 3 coverings. Starting from the inside out, I use a particular mnemonic for that, that is PAD, P-A-D, starting from inside out. First is the pia mater, which is the innermost. Second is the arachnoid mater, and the outermost, that is the dura mater. So these are the 3 coverings of the spinal cord, and the coverings, actually these 3 layers, these are covering not only the spinal cord but also covers the brain also. But I am not going to talk about the covering in this video. I will make another video for the meninges of the spinal cord, that is the covering of the spinal cord. So now let us focus on the cross section of the spinal cord. So if I draw it over here, in the cross section of the spinal cord, first of all we need to do the side determination, that this side will be the anterior and the opposite, that is the posterior. Now inside this particular cross-sectional area of the spinal cord, there are 2 different areas termed as in grey matter as well as the white matter. Grey matter which lies in the center, and the white matter which lies in the peripheral portion of the spinal segment. So edge-shaped grey matter, so let me write it over here, that this is the edge-shaped, or I can say the butterfly-shaped grey matter which lies in the center, and in the center portion of that lies the spinal canal. So this spinal canal, which is filled by the cerebrospinal fluid, that is the CSF, and the grey matter as well as the white matter. Okay, so grey matter, the name that is given, that is grey matter. So because there are many nerve cell bodies which are situated in the grey matter, and the appearance of nerve cell bodies microscopically, that is grey in color, that's why it is called a grey matter. And the myelinated as well as the non-myelinated fibers, so those appear as the white microscopically, so they are called the white matter of the spinal cord. So in the grey matter lies the nerve cell body, as well as it receives the sensation, that is posteriorly it receives the sensory stimuli, and from the anterior motor response is going out of the spinal cord, or I can say the spinal segment. So there are various nuclei which are present inside this. So I will just tell you the names of the nuclei, otherwise all the tracts as well as the lamellar organization of the spinal cord that I'm going to explain in my next video. So here are the names of those nuclei. So nuclear name, they are in sequence, that first we will focus on the posterior grey horn, then comes the lateral grey horn, and then comes the anterior grey horn. So this area is known as an posterior grey horn. I write it as a PGH, that is posterior grey horn. This area, that is lateral grey horn, and the anterior one, that is anterior grey horn. So there are total 4 nuclei which are present in the posterior grey horn. So the first nucleus, that is the marginal nucleus, so I write it as the marginal nucleus. Second thing is substantia gelatinosa of Rolando. Third nucleus, that is chief sensory nucleus, and the fourth one, that is the Clerk's nucleus. For the lateral grey horn I will show it over here. The lateral grey horn shows a group of nuclei which is termed as an intermediolateral nucleus. So let me write it over here, that it is intermediolateral nuclei. And my favorite, that is anterior grey horn. So anterior grey horn shows the 3 different nuclei, that is first is the alpha, second is gamma, and the third one, that is Rancho cells, alpha, gamma, and the Rancho cell. So these are the nuclei as well as the brief idea about this cross-sectional area of the spinal cord. So if you have any doubts in this concept, do mention in the comment section, and if you want to understand the tracts as well as their origin and the function of the tracts which are there in the spinal cord, so that I will make a video on that. And till then, keep learning, keep exploring, maximum share these videos. It may help someone to understand the concept of the spinal cord. You can share with your friends so that they can understand the concept of the spinal cord in a little bit more detail as well as in the simplified way. Do like, share, and subscribe my channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you will receive the new notification every time I post a new video. Till then, thank you so much for watching the video till the end. Thank you.